Welcome to Nintendo Way Show for the week of February 4th, 2016. I am your host, Jose Otero, and this is IGN's Nintendo Show. With me once again is Peer Schneider.
Hi, Jose.
You had more to say? What happened?
I was going to say your entire name, then I'm like, you know what? I don't have to
know
be
my
that
whole
formal
name.
anymore.
That's right. Yeah.
Jose.
I'm not telling it on the show. And with us once again, Brian Altano.
Hi, Jose. Julian Eggplant Otero.
That doesn't sound Spanish at all.
They don't make a lot of Spanish eggplant dishes, do they?
No, I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
Yeah, Puerto Ricans at that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we have an action-packed show for you today. So many things to talk about. There was a Nintendo financial meeting this week. There was a reveal about how Amiibo are doing and the top Amiibo by region. We also want to talk about Nintendo's next mobile game. A couple of things even about E3, but let's kick things off with Bayonetta and Corrin are now available in Smash. You can download it right now. So once again, there's the dollar price difference. If you're getting Corrin, you're paying $1 less than you would be for Bayonetta. That's probably because of licensing.
Mm-hmm. What? Really?
Yeah. So Corrin is $4.99 for one platform, $5.99 for both. Bayonetta is $5.99 for one platform, $6.99 for both.
Interesting. That's very.
I did the same thing with Ryu too. Yeah.
They're basically cutting you slack on Nintendo-owned franchises versus licensed characters.
Wow.
Yeah.
I guess I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
That's very fascinating. So I guess it has nothing to do with character complexity or.
Yeah.
What is funny, like it's that they're not hiding it. They're basically saying, "Oh yeah, that's not our character, so you have to pay more."
So we got to give them $1.
So speaking of not hiding, though, like here's a few other fun statistics with numbers before we talk about how these characters play. So they have now an all-in-one fighter bundle, which is every character they've released via DLC. If you want them on one platform, that's $34.93. If you want them on both, it's $41.93. So you are getting a savings for getting them on both platforms. But if you think about it, you paid for both games.
Yeah.
So it's kind of an interesting situation.
Well,
they also have a stage bundle, same $8.46 for one, $14.45 for both.
Do you remember the Mario Kart DLC? You could buy all of it before it all came out.
Yeah.
Which was
basically
basically
like a pre-order.
Sort of a season pass, right? The closest thing Nintendo's ever done to that.
I just wouldn't say those words, but sure.
Of course. And I totally paid it, and it ended up being totally worth it, and I loved it. I wish they had done something like this.
I don't think they knew how many characters they were going to have. I think that's the difference. With Mario Kart, they planned it ahead, and they said, these are our two content drops.
These are the resources we're going to spare to make this work.
This one, it's like, I mean, I think Bayonetta was a really late decision for them, right?
Even
but
the
it
ballot, I wonder.
But if you add up the dollars now for the two games and the extra downloadable characters and the stage, that's a lot of money. And that's why, going back to our discussion 2 episodes ago, if you think about a Gold Edition NX Smash Brothers launch title that combines content from both of those games and the DLC for like a price of $49 or something,
so apparently,
it makes sense.
Yeah, we missed that point, and I like that point. Just if it is that case, the only thing is everything from 3DS would have to be scaled up considerably, but maybe that's where you're getting the difference.
But that's
maybe
what you're paying for, right?
Yeah, that's maybe what you're paying for.
Or from the Wii U scaled down, right? If it is primarily a handheld device.
So that is fascinating, though, the way you would say that Mario Kart was all planned out and Smash wasn't, which means that I'm guessing they had a ballpark of how many characters they wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they reached Bayonetta and they were like, that was really hard, we're done.
Well, yeah, and who knows if the plan was also, if these aren't selling, maybe we won't do them. Like, I don't know. Like, maybe it also could have been, hey, we're testing the waters on this. We don't really know.
And that's the kind of thing you'll almost never get sales numbers.
Yeah, no.
Remember, this was the game where the creator himself said he didn't want to do DLC.
Yeah. Well, and he said that, and he's adamantly said he didn't start on it until the game was done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so definitely, I think they had foresight in how they designed the game, but they also patched it to make the menu bigger and like change things around. I honestly think they had no idea how many characters they would do in the end.
So it's $42 to buy every character and stage in this game. All the DLC.
Roughly. Yeah, so it's 41. Well, it depends on if you're getting it on both platforms or not. If you're getting it on both, you're paying, looks like almost 60-something bucks. Whereas if you are getting them on only one, you are paying closer to less than $45.
So 30. How much is that? $44.95.
Something like that.
So that's $10 more than the. Or how much did the 3DS version ship at? $39.99.
It was probably $40.
Interesting. Yeah. That's like so unusual for them to actually look back at this point and go, hey, the cost of the DLC for this game actually eclipsed the cost of the game on one platform. That's very different for Nintendo.
I think that's very normal though for every other game. If you
Yeah.
look at like an Elder Scrolls game or anything like that,
Well,
where
yeah.
you have multiple content drops.
I
It
also-
adds up.
I also think it's very smart to trickle this out because you don't get had they announced on day one the same way EA did with like Star Wars Battlefront to be like the game's 60, the season pass 50, people would have been furious.
Well, and more to the argument against that was that when that game shipped, it didn't feel like it had enough stage variety, and it did feel like there was a bit. I don't know. It didn't feel quite as much variety in terms of weapons, in terms of stages, in terms of some of the modes people didn't really like. But
whereas
it's
Smash
take it or leave it.
absolutely did.
Yep.
Yeah. There's so much content in those games. But Bayonetta and Corrin are fantastic. It's another great reason to fire up Smash Wii U again. I did that last night. I downloaded and imported the games for both. And Bayonetta, super fast, furious, got to get in close. Even though she has some ranged attack, it doesn't really damage you by much.
Does she match the game? Like, do you feel
Absolutely.
like Okay,
combos are perfectly matched with how she moves. Her dodges are the same as how she moves. Her down B, which sets off Witch Time, which is sort of that slow motion dodge that happens in Bayonetta. Absolutely perfect. Like, they did a really, really good job. I hope she is balanced to that game's strengths, because I think that's going to be the ultimate proving ground is the community sort of ripping it apart and trying to figure out, is she OP or not? Because there's already an established sort of tier list, right? And this thing comes with patch notes that sometimes undermine and make some changes so that some characters drop in and out of tiers according to the community.
Because this is more than just being like, here's 2 new characters.
Yeah.
There's also like, we nerfed Diddy Kong's peanut gun or whatever it is.
Yeah, Diddy Kong in particular has actually undergone some serious changes. Like, that was a god tier character at one point, and then it kind of came down a little bit.
I want that on a T-shirt, by the way. We
We
nerfed
nerfed
Diddy
Diddy
Kong's
Kong's.
peanut gun. That's a great T-shirt.
That actually could be a really great T-shirt. Yeah, Smash Wii U, 3DS.
We need
and then
another
there's
T-shirt.
Corrin, even though you want to complain, it's another Fire Emblem character. Still feels really unique. I like that it is sort of a mix between how Robin feels. So Robin is primarily a spellcaster, but there are some melee moves to that character. It's a nice cross between that and like a Marth to me, but way more range. Like Corrin and the special attack specifically that turn into like those Dragon Fang kind of moves. Those are really cool. Like, I think I can't wait to see what the community does with these 2 characters in terms of play style, in terms of like how combos work. Hopefully, the next big Smash tournament they'll be allowed. We'll see.
I can't unsee this. Our NVC Facebook group, somebody posted a picture of a Corrin player named On the Cob. And like, I just can't.
Corn on the cob.
I can't
that's
unsee it
so
now.
good.
Yeah,
That's
it's,
really
it's-
great.
that's pretty
So
amazing.
Corrin in Japanese is
You guys are awesome.
That character's name is Kamui. I did
Yep.
not learn that until last night. Yeah.
Kamui, that's the main character. Yeah.
Okay. Is that just a name, or does that mean something?
I think I forget.
Not to put you on the
Yeah.
spot.
No, I see. I don't remember anymore. I actually named my character that. So
Okay. Yeah, because that's the default name in the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but in Domaji in English letters, I named him that.
Oh, got it. Okay.
So these are the last 2
never forget.
characters.
This is the end.
Smash
so
is
far.
Smash is complete officially as of
Yeah,
On
that's
Wii
it.
U
As
and
of
3DS.
today, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's done. And what a run it was.
Yeah.
It was really fun. Can't wait. I mean, where do you even start on the next game? I don't even know. Like, I
Mario.
will say their biggest. Of course you do, Mario. You're cute. No, but I mean, I feel like guest characters were this really fun thing. They took even further. Like, Brawl had Snake, but I don't feel like the reception to Snake at first was this positive, right? Like, Snake
and
overall
Sonic, right?
felt like a weird inclusion.
Well, that's
in
why I was
Brawl.
asking about Bayonetta, because it like they're the most realistic characters out of the bunch.
Oh
right?
no, she's a little weird.
Yeah.
My first match with Bayonetta was against a Ness, and I was like, "Well, this is strange. This is a little bizarre."
If you think about it like that, yes, it is a grown woman beating up a child with her hair. I mean, that's a little weird.
It's a little weird.
Yeah.
but it's that's
No, I think I mean, and also
Smash Brothers.
Sonic was in Brawl, right?
yeah, Sonic
So
was there.
That was pretty much the extent of their.
But that's like the fantasy kid I
he
can't
fit.
believe it. Like, I guess there was a
Yeah.
good reception of that. No.
Well,
that's
there was
true.
also like we had seen a couple Mario and Sonic games at that point, and there was crossover. Sonic's also been in like kart racing games and stuff like that. There's that sort of precedent for that goofiness. Snake did feel a little out of it, but I'm totally with you in that the next round, like, they're gonna have to go even bigger than
You
where
had
they are now.
Cloud from Final Fantasy VII in a Smash Brothers game.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Like, where do you even
I think
go
it's-
from there? I don't even know. King
They-
K. Rule. Get out of here with that. Nobody.
Yeah,
I'm
well,
talking
the-
about go
They
outside.
need to give our Splatoon boy and Splatoon girl real
Yep.
names and actually
That's
create
the-
those as characters.
So I'm going to agree. That is the biggest drop ball for me for Smash Brothers.
Yeah.
I don't think they anticipated how well Splatoon was going to do in Japan.
Yeah.
Had they known, would it have probably been included? I think so.
Yeah, for sure.
But then again, Sakurai and a team of people make the call. Maybe ultimately they said, nope, we don't want to do this.
By the way, it's really funny. I mean, when I play Smash Brothers now, it kind of all gels together. It doesn't feel odd that these characters are playing together. And maybe I'm brainwashed because I didn't feel the same way about PlayStation All-Stars. Like PlayStation All-Stars, I felt like it didn't feel like
it
as
didn't
good
gel
of
as
a,
well.
of a mix. Like Kratos felt very weird in that game with the PlayStation cat and but maybe that's just because I'm so much more familiar with the Nintendo characters.
Well, I think so.
I can't say that.
I think that's a big part of it, and it's also like in terms of third party, Bayonetta and Snake were the only ones that ever really treaded into kind of M-rated territory.
Yeah.
Also, PlayStation All-Stars called upon a bunch of franchises that I don't. Not that I don't associate with Smash Brothers, but I also didn't really see as fighting game characters, like a Big Daddy.
Right.
Like it really made no sense to throw a Big Daddy in that
Killzone guy.
Yeah, the Killzone guy.
That was another one.
It was very
I will
odd.
say this: it is strange in hindsight to see that Cloud got into Smash and it wasn't in PlayStation All-Stars, considering Final Fantasy VII's complete identity with the PlayStation as a platform.
Well, I wonder if they even tried. Like I would love to see a documentary on the way
think so.
both of these games were made and how who makes the phone call, who makes the call to say, "Hey, we really want to get Cloud in this game."
Yeah, but
it was one of the biggest. I would say it's one of the biggest surprises of this generation to see Cloud.
It's an impressive move, and All Stars Live, of course, was cut short in that it wasn't the success that Smash Brothers was, right? Which goes to teach you, like, it's not just about the package and the install base and the audience that plays these games. And about the franchises involved, it's also about the gameplay. And I do think Smash is just such a better game, feel-wise, setup-wise, and is much more charming. So, I mean, kudos for pulling that off and getting Cloud in the game. I gotta think though, if All Stars had been a success and around longer, they probably would have been able to nail that too.
I honestly think that the aesthetic that Sakurai and everyone else working on this game has nailed is what has made Smash Brothers feels so unified.
Yeah.
It's got this consistent art style that even when they bring in characters that don't look like they would fit, they make little minor tweaks that just kind of sit into that world and just mesh in perfectly. Like it's very odd that it is unsettling to see Bayonetta fight Ness or whatever or Lucas, but somehow they make it work. And I don't know. It's something about the tone. Like there's just this aesthetic and style and tone to that game that makes sense that I don't think PlayStation All-Stars was ever able to truly capture.
Yeah, like you almost couldn't picture okay, take Earthbound, take the way that game is presented when you fight, which is very much like Dragon Warrior / Dragon Quest.
Yeah,
and then put a Bayonetta sprite on screen.
Like
it doesn't work. Like
well,
that game had hobos and dogs and bats and just this very weird adventure sort of idea behind all the art direction.
It's like peanut butter and chocolate versus peanut butter and pickles or something like that. And there's those weird people you'll meet every now and then. They're like, "Oh, I really like peanut," and you're like, "That's strange. That's not normal."
You meet people like that?
I've met people like that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I dated a girl like that.
Yeah,
we are not together anymore.
Okay.
That was why.
All right, but I'll tell you who is together now. It's Detective Pikachu and Peer. So Peer, tell us, what's it like to solve a whodunit with a tiny electric rat by your side?
Well, he's pretty. I mean, he's not the cute little electric rat that you remember. Detective Pikachu's Pikachu is a little bit of a different character. It's really hilarious. I mean, it is gameplay-wise, it's probably closest to classic point-and-click adventures, or even the Telltale games.
Yeah.
It actually has a lot of voice work in it, so Pikachu talks a lot. But right from the get-go, it sets the scene. It shows this cute Pikachu, crossing the street, and a car almost runs him over, and he goes, "Pika, Pika, 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 Pika." He's with a normal voice, rants at this car.
And right before that scene, he's sitting on the sidewalk, sort of having a thought in his head, which is in Japanese, and then a pretty girl's walking by, and he's like, "Oh," fixes his hat, walks out into the street, is like, "Pika, Pika, Pika."
A pretty human girl?
A pretty human girl.
I don't know. He got down like that.
Yeah,
right.
No, he does. But it's really funny. I mean, it is really, it's a really interesting character because he is, he meets this guy, right? Tim Goodman is the main character of this game, this human guy, and he bumps into him and he can understand him. Like he understands Pikachu, and Detective Pikachu,
Right.
Pikachu's like, you can understand me.
I'm sure the rest of the Pokemon
But
didn't have trouble understanding
none
Ash,
of the
sorry.
none of the other humans can understand Pikachu.
There you
They
go.
just hear Pika, 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 right? And then none of the Pokemon can understand the human guy, and so that's where you have this dynamic
so he's
of
like a translator?
Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson. Like as you play, you realize you're like, oh, okay, Pikachu's got to ask the Pokemon, and Tim's got to ask the
Well,
human.
and there are quick time events, so like
Yeah.
early on, you have to sort of help Pikachu get back onto a sort of a ledge / cart because he almost fell off.
Yeah.
There's something else happening. You have to
Yeah,
duck
you got,
because
you
they threw
know,
like a hot dog, like a Pokemon threw a hot dog at
Yeah,
you.
an Apom throws it at you, and you got the kind of classic like circle converging on the A button
Yep.
thing. It's not there doesn't seem to be that much of that interaction, but they try.
It starts
to,
with that. No, they kick
try
it
to
off like
give
an
it a little bit
action.
more life. But it's more like you walk around, you use the stick to walk around. You can use the stylus to like open dossiers and like look at stuff at the bottom.
Look at the clues.
At the clues, or you can just use the A button and stuff. It's not in 3D, by the way. Like
Yeah,
there's
no
no
3D.
3D in it, which is funny because the graphics are actually pretty good. I mean, it's a downloadable title, but Pikachu's animation is really good.
I
And
agree.
it matches the voice acting. Is
The
really
lip syncing is
funny.
also very good.
He's snarky. I
Yeah.
mean, he's really snarky and like
What
you
was
know.
one thing he told you earlier that you made me laugh with? It was something like,
Well, you got
"Don't
this-
just click on me when you like
Well,
need me" or something like
he
that.
teaches you like the game teaches you all these things, right? Like for the first time you talk to a human character, Pikachu will pipe up and Tim will talk to him, and then the lady's like, "What the hell is going on?" Right? Like they and then they decide, oh, maybe it's better that I don't speak when you're speaking to humans, right? And so you get this icon, and this Pikachu icon at the bottom that says whenever he has something to say, it'll light up.
He's like, "Oh,
But-
Timu,
Yeah,
Timu."
he's like Timu. Like, you know, Choto. Like he'll say stuff the whole time. And there's this one part where he pipes up, the icon lights up, and you click on it, and he's like, you don't just have to like, you don't have to feel bad for me and just talk to me when the icon lights up. Like he basically chastises you for only talking to him when the icon lights up. Like so, it has this kind of funny snark, quirky humor to it. The gameplay is super simple, right? Like you talk to this character, like you talk to a Diggersby, and he'll tell you, oh yeah, the Apom has red tomato juice on his palm, and like. And then you gather all these clues, and then you basically get a map of the area, and you're supposed to drag the icons into the right places. Like, oh, where did
Order of
you talk?
events.
Where did you talk to the Diggersby? Over here, right? Like, where's the Apom that has white paint? It's like over here. So you drag all these things, then you get good, and you move on, and in pursuit of this evil Apom that stole a necklace.
Yeah, that's right. So
basically.
the case opens up with a theft. An Apom for no reason just decides to take a necklace and run.
Yeah.
There's two of them that causing trouble. That's where the hot dog throwing came in. It's super charming. Like he was able to absorb a lot more obviously than I did. Like I messed around with it for a night and was just like, okay, Pikachu talks a lot. A couple of other things just to note, and I've seen this posted in a few places. Like this Pikachu apparently loves coffee, and he has a mysterious past. They kick off with sort of a cutscene of him getting the Sherlock hat from someone else, and then there's a car accident. He wakes up. And so there's like this crazy, like almost undertone of like there's more going on here.
Well,
and it's fun.
he's basically his trainer, master, whatever friend is no longer around. I mean, we don't know yet what the story will reveal about that.
Is he a Pikachu or the Pikachu?
He's
What's the difference?
He's a
Well, I don't know.
Pikachu.
I mean, I don't know if
You
there's
know,
lots
the
of
one
them.
at the Macy's
It is
parade
honestly,
versus-
there's the talking Meowth from New Jersey that we all know and love, and
Yeah.
then there are other Meowths, obviously, that you can
Yes.
catch in the games, and it seems to be set up the same way.
cute.
There's, your Pikachu who can talk, and but it's a very, very simple game gameplay wise, right? Like you've seen this before, but it's funny, and like I really like how they mix up things. It has a different style too, like the world of like the humans and the Pokemon cohabiting. Like it looks a little different, more like the GameCube games, really. Like
Yeah,
if you
it does
remember
have that
those,
look,
you know?
yeah.
You brought it over to my desk, and I was kind of remarking at how gorgeous the art style was, and especially the bottom screen
Yeah.
of the map, how it looks like hand drawn and sketchy.
Yeah, they
It's
got
really
like
cool. It's very
sketch
different
art,
for
but
Pokemon.
no, the star is really Pikachu in the animation, and like it'd be awesome. There's a petition out there to have Danny DeVito.
Yeah, it's got
voice
almost
Pikachu.
50,000
would be-
signatures.
That
Oh,
would be
man.
such a great match. If you're into Japanese games, you have a 3DS, and you want to import it, like you do need to be able to read and understand some Japanese. But
lot.
the game lets you switch it to, like, if you don't read kanji, you can switch it to hiragana. So
Yeah.
like beginning players can actually read it with a dictionary. So I mean, we don't know if it'll ever come here. So if you're
What do you
into
think the chances
importing,
are, just based on your limited time?
I think it'll come out. It's just like it is quirky and funny enough to make it out here. I think people will like it because it's just so weird again.
But when you compare it to Telltale games, I feel like Telltale games have a certain edge in terms of like the power, the stress of the decision, and then watching the outcome. This game seems to entertain in a very different way, but is it entertaining enough? You think?
Snorlax will remember that.
It does. So I was gonna say it doesn't appear to have that. It's more like a linear game.
Snorlax.
It's there is a mystery to the game. Like when you see the pictures, you're like, oh my god, there's Apom and there's blood on him, and no, that's tomato juice.
That's
like,
ketchup or something.
Yeah. It is a kid friendly game still, but it has an edge and it's
has
funny.
way more personality than their other downloadable experiments to
sure.
me. Like I feel like Shuffle, P-Cross, whatever the last one was that was also free to play. It's so forgettable.
Right.
I don't remember. I'm sorry.
And by the way, for all the arguments about games don't need voice acting, this is a game that really shows what happens when you
benefits from
add
it.
clever voice acting, and the Japanese acting is really good in this one. Yeah.
Well, hopefully, if it makes it over, they do a really good job on translation. They get a fun, charismatic person to run it. I don't know if it's Danny DeVito. I feel a little weird by that.
Pikachu!
Timmy!
No.
All
Brian
right.
is really scared right now. He's looking at us.
He has a
Yeah,
little
no,
afraid. That's the most that's been said about Bobcat in a while.
I'm into it.
All right, so next thing on the docket is Twilight Princess HD, which I got to play. There's some coverage on the site right
Jealous.
now. Very, very cool stuff. We got a graphics comparison. We have a written preview. We have a bunch of clips of the game itself. Have to say, looks a lot better than those trailers made me think it did. I feel like, especially the last story trailer I saw, really kind of worried me because there were some scenes where it's like, this looks completely washed out. Some of it looks completely almost bad.
We're in a weird spot with video games now because to actually see a still of a game, it has to be uploaded from a screenshot from a press site to a Twitter account, which adds its own like defractaling or whatever it is.
Oh yeah, they used defractaling.
And then you pull it up on your phone that might load weird or it's dark or whatever.
Or even
by the
just
time you
YouTube
actually see a picture of
compression.
it, yeah.
Even YouTube compression is the worst culprit in my mind. Like,
Well,
the footage in house or the footage on screen was 10 times
You
better.
ever see one of those like memes on Facebook that just has like giant pixel squares all over? Because it's just been it's making a copy of a copy of a copy of something. So by the time you see it, and I know there was that thing on NeoGAF where it was basically showing some of the characters in the game. Yeah, and
I thought that thread was hilarious.
Yeah, it was very funny.
I was laughing so
because
hard. Good job, guys.
Sometimes you go with what you can get, right? And to see those screens, I was sitting there going like, man, I'm kind of bummed out. This is not really worth the effort. And I was hoping this would look better than it did. And then you came back to the office with a bunch of footage, and I was like, yes, it does. It looks gorgeous.
But I also want to manage expectations, right?
Yes.
Like the geography, like the objects look the same. It's not like if you thought the trees looked kind of behind the times, which we all did when the game came out, right? Like the kind of cardboard origami trees.
Yeah.
They're still like that. It's just that they did clean up the textures and some of the imagery we have seen online that does not look different from the GameCube version. I don't feel like are representative of what it actually looks like.
Well,
the lighting looks nicer on a TV screen too.
does
It looks
look way
very
nicer.
gray in a lot of the pictures.
Yes, yeah. There's
but
also
but it does not look as vibrant as the
but
GameCube one.
clearing it up as much as they had with like the upgrade in texture resolution with the lighting specifically, it does a great job of making the game look better, but it also brings to light like some imperfections like those trees specifically, or even like if you look at the thumbnail of one of the thumbnails we have of the graphics comparison, Link is holding a key in front of him, and I bet you didn't notice that much that his thumb actually goes through that guard that he wears on his sword hand.
Yeah.
And so it's just like, oh man, I never noticed that there before. And there's a lot of that I feel happening. I feel like some of the canyons and especially like the exterior environments still look a little weird to me, but overall, like playing through that game again, for the time that I got to spend with it, so I got to play with, slight spoiler for the next 10 seconds, run away. I got to play with Temple of Time, which is a late game dungeon, much later on in the campaign, which is a cool dungeon, by the way. Like I really like that space, and I also like the Sky Temple, and as well as Snow Peak. Snow Peak is really cool. But I got to play through some of those areas. Oh, you're being lied to the whole time in the temple. It's amazing.
It's so good.
Yeah,
And like I really like Jared Petty. Like,
yeah, he's in that.
Yeah, that's
I
right.
recognize him. No, but like the geometry on like maybe some of the mountains looks a little old.
Yeah.
But overall, the feel, the way it plays, like I was really happy with it overall, and I'm excited to play it now.
Yeah, and I share your enthusiasm for the game. I had forgotten how many cool areas and things are in there, right? And like I do think the beginning is a slog, and seeing you play through that again, I'm like, I love how it sets up the end in the very beginning.
you were
I'm not
watching
going to
me play
spoil
the Wii
anything.
version.
Yeah.
And I love that. And in hindsight, it's so cool that that happens. But when you're playing the beginning and you're a returning Zelda player, you feel like it drags a little bit.
It does drag.
Once you get out, it gets really, really cool. There's so many cool areas to explore. Now, but there has been, I mean, I've seen a lot of negative comments even on the new footage that that you showed. And like one thing it is not a complete redo of the game. It is definitely running in higher resolution, and it's not just, they didn't just flip the resolution. Like the textures are redrawn, some textures are outright like replaced and new. There's more that went into updating the game than I think people see.
So would you say this is less of a remake than, say, what Grezzo did with Ocarina of Time or Majora's
Oh,
Mask?
yeah, way less.
Absolutely.
I think that's a good way to sort of manage expectations.
And it's
then.
less than Uncharted Collection too. Like if you play Uncharted
Right.
Collection, right? Like they did a lot more to the graphics cleanup.
Yep.
Like you go into the first game, you're like, wow, it looks very vibrant, even though it doesn't look as good as the later Uncharted's. But it's awesome. I think people, when they see it running on their TV, they'll say, oh, it looks a lot better than what I remember. But it is Twilight Princess, warts and all.
Yeah.
It has the beautiful animations in the cutscene and the really stiff running around. Like Link's animation is very stiff, right?
Well, when he's running around and when he's swimming, it looks much better. There are other parts of the game, like cutscenes, where it does look better versus just general walking and running in general.
And it has the awkward like animation loops, right? When you have the wolf sitting there and like goes through like the same animation while you're, if you hit the A button, it'll advance, but like it's stuck and they do that weird kind of like Street Fighter ready
but
animation.
That's really
right?
small stuff too. I feel like that was the first game that when they approached it, the characters didn't stay stuck in that animation till you hit A. They kind of finished and would just wait until you got to the next moment in either what they had to say or in the story. Like I feel like that game in particular, especially given the time it came out, it was basically a lot of give and take, where some of it did look dated and some of it did try to catch up with where presentation was at the time. Obviously outside of voice acting, which is another thing someone put, like I saw as a comment, and I'm just like, why are you expecting that? This is a remake of, this is not a remake, this is a re-release of Twilight Princess, warts and all, like you just said. Where does that expectation come from?
Well, the expectation is when you charge, almost it's full price, basically,
I think it's full
right?
price,
And
it is full
I think
price.
that's where the expectation comes in. It's like, hey, as a person who paid full price for this game before, what is the reason? What is my reason for checking it out again when I'm paying the same price now, 10 years later? And like, yeah, it's great. It runs on the new console.
But it's clearly a nostalgia play. Like it's clearly the same play
is.
that like Majora's Mask was, Ocarina of Time were, although those were more effort
doesn't
put
make
into,
doesn't
for
make
sure.
the pricing right, though.
It doesn't. I'm not going to say that.
And that's like Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask, like they felt different because of the upgraded visuals. And like you said it best, right? It's like that's what you remember it looking like,
Right.
but it didn't actually look like that.
Yeah.
And even Wind Waker, Wind Waker felt like more of an upgrade. And partially it's because Wind Waker's art style is so timeless, right?
whole
Like that
game,
game just
yeah.
looks so good, and it
In
was
general.
much more blurry in its original release. Like in hindsight, when you see it in HD, it just looked so gorgeous.
Yeah, I
Whereas
agree.
Twilight Princess it absolutely looks nicer. So people saying it looks like crap, it doesn't look like crap. It has some really gorgeous moments. The lighting doesn't all look that flat. There's some really vibrant, nice looking stuff in there too. But it is not to me, it's not a full price redo of the original, and I think that's
So
where
you
some
think that's
people,
risky of them to price it at full price?
yeah. And the reason why it works again is it has an amiibo in it, right? Like you are getting a Wolflink amiibo, and it's a nice looking amiibo. I think it looks really cool.
You have a gallery of that too on the site?
You're getting that with the base package. Do we know the price of the digital download? Like
For Twilight Princess standalone? I have to look that up.
Yeah, and like I think that's the big question, right? Like I have no problem paying full price because it has the amiibo in it.
I just think the big question is, if you are a fan of this and you've played it, obviously you have the choice of, are you going to buy this or not? If you didn't play it, it's definitely a game that I would recommend worth checking out because it is Zelda Twilight Princess in all of its warts and all. And that game had you've said this once, Brian, very high highs, and in some places very low lows.
Yeah, I think it has
a mix of both.
It has some of the best tempos in the entire Zelda history.
So
I'd say.
good.
I mean, some of them are just incredible.
Yeah.
I'm really interested to play this. I think you bring up a good point, Pear, that it's a little weird that I'm going to be spending the same price for it in 2016 as I did in 2007, 2008.
Well, especially when you think about like when other updated remasters, if you want to call them that, or re-releases, actually cut the price in order to sell. Like it does look kind of selfish of Nintendo.
Well, you mentioned the Uncharted collection, right? It's three games for $60.
3 really good games too.
So this is different, and I don't like.
That wasn't a huge bump, like Uncharted collection from PS3 to PS4. Let's not pretend that's a huge leap.
It looks
good.
Nicer in optic. To be fair, those games always looked really good.
Yeah. No, they were made with like the technology of 2008, 2000. Oh, well, Uncharted 1 was 2008 or 2007.
But I mean, it's effectively a one generation jump.
Yeah.
Between both of these games that we're talking about. But I think though what really fascinates me about this is I go back and play a lot of the Zelda games for some reason, and I think I know why, but I had never gone back and really replayed Twilight Princess. It's probably because every time I sat down to the first few hours pushed me away.
Yeah.
But I haven't in a while. Yeah. And I think when I went back about 2 years ago, 2-3 years ago, Jose's always got me thinking about going back and playing through Zelda games.
So every time you talk to me,
every time I talk to you, you're playing like one of them. So
I'm playing 5 right now.
I played through Link's Awakening from start to finish last weekend because I absolutely love that game. I'm going to do the Oracle of Ages and Seasons games next.
Nice.
Because I miss them, and they're great games. But this was the one where I went to go back 2 years ago, and I was like, oh, that's right. It's pointer controls, and there's a lot of like flicking the wrist and stuff like that to play it on the Wii. And it didn't look great hooked up, and I was like, yeah, the first few hours kind of pushed me away, and I just stopped playing it. And I liked that game a lot. So I'm very excited to go back and try it again. I'm a little hesitant to be like, I'm playing the GameCube version now. It's going to be completely mirrored. So I think my muscle memory in my brain is going to be like, do I go left here or go right here?
Dude.
It is confusing. I did that. Yeah.
No. So I've been playing. Actually, I've been playing a little bit of each version.
I don't know how you're doing.
So I'm just working on a bunch of things, and the best way for me to get ideas is to play the game of the moment or the game that I'm mostly thinking about. And in this case, it was really weird because I turn off like the GameCube version, power up the Wii version, then go to make a left. Like, oh wait, it's on the right this time. So it caught me completely off guard.
I think about the first time I unlocked mirror mode in Mario Kart 64, and I drove on Toad's Turnpike, and every time I was like, "This is a left," and it was like, "Ah!" and I just crashed into a truck. Like that's. I mean, there's no trucks in Zelda, but that's a worry, right?
Yeah.
Like
there are big cows.
But on the flip side, I think it's going to help make the experience kind of feel fresh and new for me again, and I'm super excited to play through this again. I think the amiibo's gorgeous. I think the art looks really cool. Yeah. You were talking about the music a little bit. That's the one thing that I'm kind of
the music is. I don't think they've updated the sound of this game at all. Yeah, which at the time even felt very criticized in reviews, having like sort of a MIDI-based sound instead of something that was fully orchestral at the time. I will say though, some of their auditions are really cool. Like Hero Mode is basically the Wii version. The image is mirror reversed. And the consequence of making mirror mode this way is that, unlike Wind Waker, where you can toggle back and forth at will, this one, once you commit to one side, you're stuck there until you start to save file over. Weird thing in Wii mode, in Hero mode, is that I couldn't aim in first person. Everything was third person, and I think that's. I almost wonder, is that the Wii version of the game? Like, did they update those assets too? Like, I really want to know how this got made.
Yeah,
I really,
that's so weird.
Really want
that's fascinating.
Know. But then they have the amiibo support, which almost feels like a reaction also to some early reviews to that game. So if you remember, a lot of reviews when that game came out were criticizing that the combat had gotten too easy.
Yeah.
Like, Link is so powerful as a character, and you learn these really advanced techniques. But it's not like Ocarina of Time, where you had enemies like one of the Stoffels that you had to wait for your opening, or the wolf, you had to wait until it took a swing at you in order to land a blow. There aren't enemies, at least in the first half of Twilight Princess, that work that way. Yeah. So when you swipe your Ganondorf amiibo and you're taking double damage, you put yourself at risk, at least if you do take a hit. And then if you really want to be a maniac, which Nintendo kept trying to get me to do, and I was like, no, I don't want to do this. Hero mode with Ganondorf, 4 times the damage on each hit. It's Bloodborne now.
So what does that So what does that look like? Like you're fighting a boss, and is it like
I was in the Cave of Shadows and I died. it was painful because
man.
I had that. I was doing fine.
Wow.
They're like, oh, why don't you swipe Ganondorf?
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay.
And how long does that last? Can you unswipe it?
Once it's game over, it goes away.
Yeah. Then you gotta swipe again.
Oh.
Yeah.
So you can opt in to make any area harder, and then
Pretty much.
to get out of it, just die.
It kind of feels like that.
But there's no
that's the
reward or
idea.
anything. It's basically fans who want to have the extra
Yeah.
challenge and
I'm sure
maybe
someone's gonna
use it in Twitch
Yeah.
streams and
Right.
show
speed
off your
runs.
skills.
I'm sure
yeah.
someone's gonna set a speed run record
Yeah.
for 4 times damage hero mode. Twilight Princess.
Oh, I
HD.
can't wait
That
to see
sounds
that.
really
Let's
fun.
go.
I can't
Yeah.
wait to see that.
How, by the way, how is the aiming with the gamepad? Because
Fine,
like, you
yeah.
can tilt the gamepad up and down and it'll move the reticle.
Yeah,
right?
so fine, just like if you're playing Splatoon again. Like I play Splatoon with motion on, so I'm okay with that. You can obviously switch those off. A lot of the gamepad functionality mirrors what they did with Wind Waker, which I think is really smart. You know, so you have the hot swap for inventory, you have the map there at all times. You can scan an amiibo. Apparently, you can unlock 50 stamps, and they have the Hylian script as part of it. Like you have the
cool.
alphabet. I think that's dangerous because someone's going to start spelling some naughty words. In my opinion, like how are you going to even police that? You
well,
know,
the moderators need to learn a new language, man.
apparently
Yeah.
you're gonna be Hylian experts. I mean, it took me 2 seconds to think
Yeah.
that up. I just hope that someone got paid to think about that.
Yeah. That's cool.
What else is there? I think
Oh, you
that-
can
that's pretty
play.
much
You
it.
can play with the Pro controller if
Yep,
you want to
just
play
like
it.
Wind
So-
Waker HD.
So if you're worried about battery life on your gamepad,
Yep.
you have the original battery. That's going to solve that issue, right?
But you can't play with a Wii remote and nunchuck.
no,
Nope.
you can't.
Not in.
That's interesting. I mean, that's a big change from how Nintendo used to think about
Yeah.
games, right?
Yeah.
Like the fact that the motion control has been sidelined like that is an interesting topic, I think, for NX too. So we'll
Which
see what happens there.
I'm personally totally okay with because I think like what Jose was saying before, how people were criticized the game for having simplistic combat. I think that was sort of compounded by the fact that the combat was simple, but your motion movements and the actual physical exertion you need to go through was not.
Yeah.
I mean, they basically mapped a button to swiping in any direction when
Yeah.
really it was just tapping the A button.
Yep, yep.
And that's all I really wanted to do, and it's a lot of the
It
reason.
wasn't like Skyward Sword where you had
Which
directional.
I want to
yeah.
Right.
I want to talk to you a little bit about that because you
Oh, he's gonna
said
come
on
at
this
me.
show that the combat in Skyward Sword you didn't like it as much because it turned sort of the enemies into a little bit of a puzzle where there was a bit of
Yeah.
a drag. You couldn't take them out quite as quickly.
Couple of reasons.
Okay, wait, I'm coming back.
Yeah.
So I was playing that game like 2 weeks ago. I'm right here.
Yeah.
You know where to find me. And I like that. Like, I do like that. I like that there's a bit more nuance to combat. Granted, it is still rooted in the same style that Ocarina of Time has worked. And I really hope that Zelda Wii U makes effort to change some of that because think about it. Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, The Wind Waker, Twilight Princess, Skyward Sword, all sort of based on that same combat system. I think it might be time to let go just a little bit. You know, keep Z targeting, but find another way to kind of do it.
But why? It was so good.
But because the complaint was, at least in Twilight Princess, this is easy. And maybe
Yeah.
the flip side is make the enemies harder, give
Well-
them less openings. I don't know.
Fewer.
Fewer,
Yeah,
thank
but
you.
they're you know the Zelda games have always been really good at letting you use your different types of weapons, right? You'll encounter a beetle with a metal shield, and you use the hook shot
Yeah.
to take away the metal shield, and before that you go around and hit it from the back. Like it has these really cool puzzles,
And there's some that you can't take away the
that
shield.
you and you play at your own pace. My issue with Skyward Sword, and by the way, it didn't ruin the game for me, and it's not every enemy, but it did introduce waiting into combat, where you're waiting for the Deku Baba mouth to open this way, to swipe
Right.
this way, and then you're waiting for it to turn again, and like it did.
I don't wait. It's called skill.
It slowed down combat a little bit for maybe
I'm
maybe
just
I'm
kidding.
old, Jose.
I'm just kidding. I'm
Yeah.
totally kidding.
Those long arms, they just swing
Yeah,
faster.
they
That's
swing-
right.
That's
Built
totally.
for waggle.
And,
And
and
speed.
the other thing is,
Built for waggle and speed.
That's mean. Wherever that's going, that's
Right.
terrible.
I mean, with the game, I'm not talking about anything else.
God damn it, I'm not finished.
I know
And
you are.
The other issue was that it was not 100% accurate. And that was one of my core complaints
So-
with the Wii U,
so I agree.
even with Motion Plus.
I agree. It does take some getting used to, and that's something that I think gamers have a low tolerance for. It's
Yeah.
the reason why most people turn off motion control is because if they're not lining up good shots in the first couple of minutes, they're like, I'm done with this.
and-
I'm going to do this the way I've known how to do it for my entire life.
Yeah, and Link comes into the dungeon. There are two Stalfos attacking him, and he says, "Hold on a second, I got to calibrate my sword." Beep, broop,
No,
beep,
no.
broop,
See, that's
beep,
not
broop.
that's not how combat unfolded at
I
the
hate
Otero
that.
house. That's how the game starts every time, and I think that's a bummer. but I feel like
It
was
got out
less
of whack for me.
It did for me all the time
Yeah.
too. I would check
No,
my
you
phone
guys
for a
gotta stop
minute, or-
swinging like you're
No.
Conan the Barbarian. That's the problem. You're from Germany. I know that this is a problem.
No,
I'm guessing.
Jose, my problem with it was you would play that game. You'd play that game for like 30 hours,
Conan
right?
is not German. Maybe he's German. He's
And
Austrian.
I like to play. I don't play Zelda games in like I'm playing The
Europe in
Witness
general.
now. I can play The Witness for 60 minutes at a time before I'm like, I'm done. My brain's cooked.
Yeah.
But Zelda, I can play that for 7 hours straight, like
Yeah.
without even thinking.
So you don't want it to be a workout. Not that it is.
Well, not only that, but it's also like part of that 7 hours is sometimes I'm like I put my phone down for a second. I go in the other room to get a bite to eat
Yeah.
or something like that. I come back.
when you're tethered to that thing, so the controller
Yeah,
goes
tethered to it,
everywhere.
and it's also like if you let it alone for too long, it forgets who you are. You come back, it's like recalibrate.
That's a system problem. That's
Yeah.
not a
And
Zelda
that's-
problem.
Well,
to
I mean,
me.
it turned out being a gameplay
All right,
problem.
we
but
got to
those
move
are-
on. But last thoughts.
But
go.
no, but those are all the like Skyward Sword. I think gets a bad rap because of some of those issues. Like when it doesn't work, it's irritating. Like you'll fight an enemy and like I swiped sideways. Like why is it registering
Yep.
differently? Right? Like it annoys you, and that just wasn't present with Wind Waker, where you hit A and it always worked. And so that's why some of those moments stick out in my memory.
Sure.
There are lots of moments
me
where it worked beautifully,
yeah,
and I loved it.
And I will tell you where.
Yeah.
The Lanrio Temple, that area, which sets off a awesome cutscene, which then sets off your first fight with the imprisoned. That sequence of events is some of my favorite Zelda that I think I've played.
It has
because
great moments.
that
game.
temple is so much fun. That was an hour, maybe a little more, where I was like, I have to figure all of this out. And there's a rule in the Otero house where if you start a temple in Zelda, you don't go to bed till it's done. Like it has to
Really?
be one sitting. Yes, I do not like picking up the pieces to try to figure out what I was trying to think of. I hate that.
I would have been
straight
awake
through.
for a 3-day weekend for the Water Temple on N64 the first time I played that.
No, I'm
Be like,
serious.
Jose, let me go to sleep.
That's how
I
that's
left
how
my
I,
N64
that's how I play
on
it.
Yeah.
because you couldn't save everywhere.
Yeah.
right?
I am Zelda Jesus then because it always works out.
Jesus.
I'm in and out in an hour. All right, so we're gonna take a quick break, and when we come back, we've got to talk about actually a really good topic, which is what's gonna happen with NX and E3. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Jose Otero here with Peer Schneider and Brian Altano.
Hello.
And for our
up?
next topic, we went a little long on Zelda, which I regret, but I always love when we talk
What?
about Zelda on this podcast.
I could
talk
have gone
for
for another 3
days.
I
days.
could too. Maybe we should experiment more with a format.
favorite
for
franchise.
Zelda specific sort of talk.
Huh.
Look forward to that, folks. So
Yeah.
next thing on the list is not really related to this week, but it's something that kicked off in our minds because of something that happened this week. So this week, EA moved its press conference, meaning it is not participating in E3 the way it used to participate. Per, why don't you give a little background before I present the topic at hand?
Well, I mean,
It's
I
pretty
think
much that.
EA wants to. E3 is a closed event usually, and EA wants its experience at E3 to be open, right? And like we've seen other companies do this, by the way, in the past.
Nintendo
like,
World Championship.
They have been,
Right.
Nintendo did the World Championship. There have been people. Remember Gathering of Developers? They
Yeah.
used to like build a tent outside of E3. I think a couple of years ago, didn't Ouya like rent a parking lot and got in trouble with
There's
you
something
know,
weird
the
like that. Yeah.
the ESA?
Oh, it was
So
like
there
a
are all these
truck.
things. Obviously, EA is doing it as part of of E3. They're part of the ESA. They are part of E3. but they're
Electronic
doing-
Software Association, for those who don't know.
And they're, EA wants to carve out a piece of competitive gaming, as they call it, and want to make more of a party out of it, right?
So this set off the question, would Nintendo end up taking that time slot, which EA's press conference is normally on a Monday.
Prime spot.
Prime spot. I think and will they have a conference? More importantly, that's the bigger question, right? We'll talk. We'll get to the E3. Do they take EA's time slot? I think the answer is no, but we'll get to that. Does Nintendo take the stage with NX being imminent? Do you go back to the stage to make that announcement? I say yes.
You think so?
And I've said yes before and looked bad because they didn't go back.
Yeah.
But
I
I
mean,
will say that.
Wait,
a new console, a new platform deserves that spot, deserves that attention.
so there's this amazing ebb and flow that happens at every press conference, and by now, if you care about video games, if you're like me, you've seen 1,000 of them. And when they go really well, there is nothing like them in the world. There's this palpable electric energy in the room. When people see something they like and you get that crowd response that you can't get in the pre-taped Nintendo Direct, there's something amazing. When something breaks or screws up, like Nintendo's Ravi Drums Wii Music thing.
Wait. But I don't think you're giving them enough credit. I mean, I think the digital event was successful the year before when they showed Zelda.
I love their
I
digital
think
events.
last year they ran into some problems, and they ran into some serious problems. There was no Zelda Wii U in there.
Right.
The Metroid Prime Federation Force footage was lame.
Yeah.
Yoshi's Woolly World, again, regardless of how awesome that package was, that was kind of rough. And then ending with Mario's 30th was a little weird because on one hand, it's a celebration, right? You're like, yes, Mario's 30 years old. On the other, this is not a new, like, exciting game announcement. This is something we're excited for.
It
but
raised
it's not
expectations.
up
Like,
there.
yeah, Mario's 30. Here's something special. You were expecting something.
Even if it was like
something
2
new,
seconds of Mario next.
Yeah.
you
Well,
know?
I think
Which
that
they
like,
don't do, to be fair.
that had less to do with the format and more to do with the content.
And that's,
like,
that's true.
had you taken that exact same press conference and put it in front of a live audience, I don't think it would have fared any better. So that's really what I'm saying is that, like, if they have something to show for the NX, it has to really wow to be like, we want that crowd response. Like, remember the times when we first saw a Zelda game? Like, what was it? Was it Skyward Sword the first time we saw that? Or Twilight Princess?
Twilight Princess?
Where there was
with
that
the Conan the Barbarian music, yeah.
Where the audience went crazy, and
Yeah.
you could watch that video on YouTube. It's got tons of views. People are really like, it's just an amazing moment in video game history, and I don't think it would have worked as well in a direct. I think that, what was it, the first time we saw Zelda Wii U was at the Spike Game Awards? That was in front of a live audience, right?
No, the first time we saw Zelda Wii U
Was
was,
that at E3?
at the digital event
Okay.
when they broadcast it online, and we were losing our minds behind the stage.
In the
Let's
war
not
room, yeah.
pretend.
Oh,
we were
yeah.
in the war room. It was me, you, and Perry. We were like,
Yeah.
oh my
Yep.
God, did you see that?
Yeah, but it was it was the limited, short look, but very successful.
Yeah, but,
right?
but who
Yeah.
cared
It
about the
worked great.
stage
Yep,
then?
yep.
Like, we were on the edge of our seats, dying to talk about it. I remember you and Fran got together and did a rewind theater
Yeah.
for it. Like, the excitement was still there. The energy was still there.
For sure.
But I don't know if that energy transfers really to a platform announcement. And
platform
I wonder
announcement.
if that sort of demands a stage presence.
I think yes. I think we talked a couple of episodes ago. You were adamant that they need to announce now, right? They need to
if
move
it's
with
if
NX.
they're selling it this year, which I
Yeah.
think if they wait till E3, they're not selling it this year. But keep going. Sorry.
Yeah, it's very, very possible.
Yeah.
They have Zelda, which is highly anticipated, a crowd pleaser, will draw a reaction from the crowd. No matter what's going to happen, we know what they're going to show is going to be cool. Just seeing the snippets of the artwork in the world, we know they're going to have a good showing of that game. Secondly, yes, it's time, right? Like they need to go. If Zelda is it, and there is not another like Super Mario Galaxy 3 for Wii U, or we haven't heard anything about the next Pikmin. Like if there's nothing major on those titles, NX is the big announcement, and platforms need a little bit of showmanship.
Yeah.
The problem, though, again, Jose, is that there is no replacement for Iwata right now.
No.
As a showman, as someone who
That's a
gets up
great
on
point,
stage
yeah.
and pulls the 3DS out of their pocket. You can say maybe Reggie is
I was
going
gonna
to be
say
that
Reggie
guy.
can do that. Yeah.
But Reggie does not speak for NCL, and this would be the first unveiling of a console that all the investors in Japan and the market in Japan is looking for. Like Nintendo is a
So you don't put that
darling
in the
old
hands
school
of
company in
Nintendo
that
of
country.
America. You don't put that in the hands of Nintendo of America's
I
boss.
feel like that needs to come from someone. Maybe
So then it's
Miyamoto. Maybe
It's
Miyamoto
Miyamoto.
is the guy and says
Yeah.
this is why the NX is going to be the big thing.
Yep.
Um,
Even though
I-
he's more creative, and even though he said, I'm not as involved with this one this time
Yeah.
around, which he did say that.
Kimishima is not going to be the guy to do here's the NX in my pocket, like however big that pocket has to be for
Yeah.
this thing. But I do think I think there will be a live reveal component to this. Because they need to make more of a splash. It has to be here's why it's big. Now, the only thing that could happen is that the NX is not the device that is going to please a E3 gamer audience. Like if it is different, if it is more like a Miitomo target audience,
Sure.
I don't think that's
then
the case.
E3 is not going to be the event for it, and they
No.
would
Yeah.
never trot it out on stage.
That is also a good
Yeah.
point.
Well, I think it puts them in a weird spot, especially, I mean, obviously for us to do our jobs, there has to be games on the show floor as well, right? That's just how coverage works. And like it or not, they had a bunch of games at E3 last year that we got to play, like, Metroid Soccer or whatever it was, and a bunch of other games. There was the Animal Crossing board
Which
game.
was fun, right?
Was-
Let's not slag it.
I know.
for
I
the
had
gameplay.
a
Yeah,
good time with it, but I
Yeah.
mean, even the smallest titles got their own
They were
space on the
smaller.
show floor.
Yeah.
We're at a spot where support of the Wii U is starting to die down. There's going to be a few games. Star Fox will be out by then,
Yeah.
correct? Zelda will hopefully have something more concrete on. There's not a ton of official first-party stuff that's like on the horizon for 3DS just yet. Maybe E3 is a place where you do that. So that really leaves the NX for putting booths on the floor where people can go and actually play them and come back and talk about them. Nintendo has a gigantic booth at E3, just like EA did. EA actually is not on the show floor this year, which also, totally other question, leaves a huge EA-shaped hole in the middle of that hall. Who knows?
Letters EA?
Who knows who's going to fill that? Like, their booth is booming and gigantic. Nintendo's is incredible. It's the size of a football field. You know, it's huge. And I'm always it's always the most magical part of E3 is walking up to that the first time. We get there a day early. We try to peek under the curtain, and Teamsters get mad at us. We come by with the cameras angled like that, try to snap pictures and stuff. But I'm very fascinated in seeing what they actually put on the show floor for press and for gamers to play, because that's going to be indicative of how far along everything is.
I think nothing. I don't think there will be any hands-on NX anything.
Really?
Yeah.
So you think then it's not being sold this year is what you're telling me?
I don't know
if
that.
It's not. If it's
I was very confident. I was very confident it would come out in 2016.
Back this car up. Hold on. Yeah. So wait a minute. Wii U, when it was unveiled, which was I want to say whatever year. Who cares right now? It was shown one year, and then the following E3 it was shown again, and we saw that it went through undergone some changes. It wasn't just the tech demos we saw the year before, and then it sold that November.
Yeah.
You think then with NX this will be the same case? Show it at E3, then show it again at next year's E3?
Well, to be fair, the Wii U at the first E3 it was shown was not playable on the show floor for most people. You could actually, there was an upper level they built that you went up there, and it was very rudimentary tech demos.
You could play it the year it was shown, because I didn't work with you guys, but I worked for 1UP, and I remember, fun fact, it was my birthday. I got online super early. I was among the first to get to it that day, and I got to play it.
Was this the one upstairs?
No, you guys had your fancy little upstairs area. I wasn't. Again, I didn't work for IGN back then. I worked for 1UP instead, and I had to go that route. I also didn't know I didn't have to stand there. I could have gone through someone else, but I know that at the time. I was
whatever.
like this young kid at E3.
Yeah. But it was a lot of tech demos, and it was very similar to the first time the DS was ever shown off, where there was a bunch of games that never actually became anything, such as the Zelda tech demo, which was the one where you basically just moved a camera around. And the DS had the same thing. There was a Sonic game where you had to rub on the bottom screen really hard to get to get a 3D Sonic to run. So I'm anticipating that there might not be full actual games playable on the show floor, but if there are microcosmic experiences that you can go up and say, well, I have an idea of what this is like. Granted, we know nothing about the way this platform is going to actually function and what its thing is going to be that's going to separate it from anything else.
I think it's going to be a glass case show. I think there will be an X at the booth in a glass case that everybody's going to stand around, snap pictures, and it's going to have, concept demos and all that kind of stuff. I don't think they'll be hands-on.
Okay, we'll see.
And I keep on going back and forth between will it come out this year or not. All the indicators are there, yes, right? If the Wii U doesn't get a lot of software, that will leave a big gap. That could be filled by lots of software for the 3DS, but guess what? We are not seeing a lot of software for the 3DS.
And they also just reported that 3DS had a bad Christmas.
Yeah, and then the other wild card is we don't know what the NX is. Again, the NX could be a birth of a new platform that lets you play games from all machines. It could be the virtual console device, which is not this big, exciting, oh my God, look at the graphics kind of device, right? That you just have to go hands on.
Yeah, we don't know.
And that is the big question for this device. So I'm wavering a little bit on my resolution that this is going to be a 2016 machine, given that we still haven't heard much. Yeah. But I do think it's going to be shown.
Okay, Brian. So I don't think. Did you put an answer on this? Like, do you think they'll return to the stage to announce? NX?
Well, do you want what I want or what I think is going to happen?
Both.
Because what I want is a live show with tons of surprises and
Dancers.
a huge audience. And what I think is going to happen is something pre-taped and very controlled.
All right.
Really?
Yeah, I think because of what you guys sort of insinuated that they don't exactly have. We don't really know like Kimishima's stage presence yet, right? Like if he can really come out there and pull something out of his pocket and wow the room.
I mean, he could come out and pull something out of his pocket. The question is, are we be excited by that or not? He totally could do that. Anyone could do that.
Anyone could do that.
Yeah.
I think, well, it depends because you need a guy like Reggie to pull out a console. Reggie's not because of who he is, but because he's a large man, a very tall man. I remember when he first pulled the Wii.
I'm taller.
You are.
We found
And you,
out
but
at
you
E3.
could really.
Yeah.
He can take you though.
Yeah.
He's way more mass and muscle
All
than
right,
you.
finish your thought because we got to move on.
Right?
Reggie pulled the Wii out of his pocket, right? That one time. The first time we ever saw the console was Reggie.
And we've gone
I think
off
so.
the cliff.
No, really. And that's a big box.
Is that
it's bigger.
true?
It's
Does
just-
anybody remember
it's
that?
bigger than 3DS.
All
Let us
right,
know
so
in the comments
listen,
below.
Did
if you're-
Brian
if-
dream this?
If
No.
you're listening to us right now and you're still here, that was a bit of a, we went a little long there, but I want you to write in. Let
Yeah.
us know. So we've had this topic before, clearly, how we want Nintendo to go back on stage, and they haven't. But this is a year unlike any other because there is the next thing right around the corner. So my question to you, should Nintendo take the stage to announce an X or not in 2016, E3 2016? Write us at nvc@ign.com. Let us know. We got 2 topics, but we don't have enough time, so we're going to pick one. Number one
what
or
are
number
the 2
2?
topics?
It's either next mobile game talk,
Yep.
which Kimishima says will feature a familiar character, and I have an interesting thing
Mario,
around
done.
that.
Let's do that.
No.
Let's do that.
Nope.
Or financial results with Amiibo sales. Which one do you want? Ding, ding,
Oh no,
ding,
let's do
ding,
that.
ding,
Let's
ding.
game speculation. That's more fun.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
if you want the financial results, there's a list on IGN of the best-selling Amiibo by region. It's very shocking because
Yep,
in
yep,
North
yep.
America, Link's number 1 and
Peace
Bowser's
Stand
number
Link.
2. Peace Stand Link number 1.
Still no
In Japan,
replacement.
it's the Splatoon characters.
I love how
which-
we're not
which
going
is-
to talk about it, but you're talking
I'm
about it.
getting
Keep
cliff
going,
notes,
keep
cliff
going.
notes, cliff notes.
Go on. All
What
right.
was Europe?
All right.
Who's number 1 in Europe?
Number 1 in Europe with a bang, classic Mario.
Yeah, it's a good list. And there are no Animal Crossing characters on the North American
But you can
top
find
10.
plenty in stores right now.
Yeah.
So
Oh, yeah.
let's move on. All right, then, 2. Sorry, if you want a better financial results breakdown, we'll do that next week. We're just short for time. Nintendo's next mobile game will feature a familiar character, says President and CEO, or if that's his title, Kimishima himself. This seems weird to me for him to be saying this so
Why does
soon.
it feel weird? Like,
Because Miitomo isn't even out the door yet.
okay.
And I have said on the show
Logically.
I have faith in I don't know what Miitomo is yet. I know what I saw when they announced it. I've seen the slides myself. They went over it again this show, talking about how it ties into My Nintendo and NX, and they have plans and pre-registration sites start here, and it launches in Japan on whatever day in March. But we don't know what the game part of it. What the game is,
If
or
any.
if it is a game, if it's
Yeah.
more like leaning on communication and on all these things, and by their conversations, by how they've explained it, it sounds like it leans on communication.
Exactly. I think it is the latter, and you're basically answering your own question, right? Like, first of all, I think every person Kimishima meets with from the press, investors will always say, like, when will we see Mario? When will we see Legend of Zelda? When will we see Metroid? That delightful lady from the game.
Yeah.
In her own game on mobile, right? And so I think he's preempting some of that.
I
And
guess my worry is it feels like damage control in case
But it is.
Miitomo underwhelms.
Oh, I don't know if it's that.
And I don't think Miitomo has had enough time to underwhelm. I think we still
Okay.
don't know what it is. I think we still haven't tried it. I think they haven't shown
I don't
us
think it's
much.
underwhelm factor. I think it is Miitomo will be something that people are not expecting. It will be an app
But
and
don't
not
worry,
a game.
because we're going to get it right on the next one.
No,
That's
no,
what it
but
sounds like
but
to
it's
me.
not. It's
worry
not.
about
I don't
that.
think
it's
it's like
not about
getting
the
it right.
quality. It's about, hey, you see us as a game maker and you see us synonymous with Mario.
Okay.
Our first product is not that. It's an app for friends to have fun and share silly me pictures, right? Like, that's what I think he's managing expectations and saying, like, by the way, we will bring Mario to this platform. I think that's what he's saying.
Well, it excites me because it makes me think that they're starting to treat mobile like an actual platform, like a handheld or a console, and you don't just come up with one idea and go, "There's our support." Like if they actually start creating a launch library of experiences to be had on mobile, then that means they're doing it right. Because that's the same way, like, you know, when the DS launched, they're like, "Oh, we have PictoChat, but we also have Super Mario 64." You know, and that has mini games in it, but we also have Yoshi's Touch and Go. Like, it's a very simple experience, and then here's a very robust thing. We have to go collect 150 stars in a 3D open world. I want that from them. I want them going, mobile is our new console.
So it's
one of
clear
our
to you that Miitomo is not that, because I think that for a lot of people they're still unsure. I feel slightly unsure, although after what Peer just said, I feel a little more convinced or understanding of what it is, being communication focused and whatnot. I was hoping there was, as someone who really enjoyed Tomodachi Life, as someone who really enjoys when Nintendo finds a unique way to gamify something, and I hate that word, but turn something that's non-traditional into a video game, whether it's Brain Age or it's whatever DS experiment it was that kind of pulls me in. And Tomodachi Collection was a huge part of that.
Right.
I really enjoy that, and I'm hoping this game has elements of that, and I have not heard or seen that they exist.
I think you expect your expectations are off in that you're not going to get that. It is to Pokemon what Pokemon Box was to this is to basically to the Miiverse and to Mii creation what Pokemon Box was to Pokemon, right? Like it has the charming characters. People love Miis, especially in Japan, right? Yeah. Which is, let's face it, the primary target for this title.
That's a great point.
And I just think it is Kimishima is just basically saying, this will be. I don't think he's saying this will be bad. It's going to underperform. I think he's saying this is not Mario. This is not Zelda. Yeah. But we haven't forgotten about the franchises that everybody knows us for.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
But, yeah.
Okay. So then,
it may be that Miitomo is the first brick in a Lego set of like this connection between friends, right?
That's what
Using
they're saying.
These characters.
Yeah, and that's what they're saying completely. Like the way it ties into My Nintendo, the way it ties into Nintendo account, the way these things will sort of complement each other. My big question: when do you flip that switch on 3DS and Wii U? Are you going to flip that switch on 3DS and Wii U?
You have to think about it.
Presumably they are, because it was part of that slideshow. Sorry,
we are all traditional core gamers, and the way we think about our access to these games is that I go on the Wii U shop channel, or I turn on PSN, or I open up Steam. There are people who are going to experience things on mobile, especially on a platform like iOS, that may never see Nintendo's traditional games ever, because there's no publisher allegiance when you are downloading a game on your phone. Like, I'll look on the top charts, right, and I have to click through to go to games. And then I'll see the top games there. But on the top charts, it just says like, Face Swapper and, Puzzle Cube and Angry Birds. And
even with the successes like Angry Birds, it's not that people on iOS are clamoring for the next Rovio game. Right?
Not at all. Most people don't even know Rovio exists.
They have to start over, and they market their title within the existing success.
Well, and maybe you've made this point, but and maybe this is tying in exactly to the point you just made, but it does make sense to grab people who are the non-traditional ones first. And maybe this is going to
swing for the fences,
Yeah, swing for them first, see how that does, and then, by the way, we've got something you might know a little better based on your childhood.
Because it's also safer. You're getting money from different people. You're not, you don't want the customer you already have who's paying you to spend money.
You also want that customer on your other two platforms, not on mobile right now.
On iPhones, Miitomo is going to be listed not under games, I assume. I think it's going to be listed under social, and it's going to be next to Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. And that's good company to be in, right? Whereas the rest
of competition.
It's tough competition, but like if you can crack through and you find the right audience and that gets big enough, then that's huge. And Nintendo's going to find, just like everybody else, that making a hit game on iOS or mobile is not as easy as it sounds. And getting to the top of the charts is not as easy as it sounds. I don't know if bigger publishers can sort of strong-arm their way in or buy their way in. I'd love to know more about that kind of stuff. But Miitomo is going to end up in the social category.
Well, and for what we know, this is Hideki Kono's project. Like they've said, the producer on the Mario Kart series is leading this. Again, we've talked about it. That's a guy who knows his stuff. That was Mr. Nintendogs as much as he is, I believe, Mr. Luigi's Mansion. And those are two very different styles of games that they got really right. So let's see, right? I'm excited.
Super curious to see how this does, right? Like, if it really sits alongside Facebook, Twitter, WhatsApp, and Snapchat, that is tough company to be in.
Right.
And Snapchat has a lot of features where teens especially share like the lenses and
inappropriate stuff too.
Well, but yeah, but they when you travel, it rewards you with special little things, and so we'll see what Nintendo's AR game is like, how. Or location-based stuff, like how well they actually will pull this off, because that's something that they didn't have to do with the 3DS. The 3DS was not an always connected title.
No,
but they wanted it to be. I mean, they set up those Nintendo Spot Pass and Nintendo Zone locations.
Exactly.
Like, you figure if you configure those things to work with something on a smartphone, which is a device you have on you at all times.
Now the world is open.
While you're picking up your exclusive Amiibo at Best Buy, you can log in and get something.
Yep.
So we'll see whether that's in this title or whether it's something that we're going to have to wait for till later.
And whereas everyone in this room is probably a little fatigued on having one more social network to deal with. Like, I know when we got really into Snapchat here, I was like, I got to do one more thing now. It's like another thing I got to learn. I think the way Miitomo integrates with other platforms is going to be very key. Like if there is an upload to Twitter or upload to Facebook screenshot thing, if there's the way when you build a character on a Mii character on your 3DS or your Wii U, you can flip the camera to look at you, and it'll take a picture of you and build a Mii based on you. It's not a good Mii. You got to go in there and mess with things. But that's something they need to do using the cameras on your phone right now. It's got to integrate with everything and location services and all that kind of stuff for it to really work. But I think the younger people are not as sort of beaten down by having 17 social networks. They're like, bring on more. I love it. I want to be able to tweet from Facebook and Facebook from Twitter, and I want to put my Instagram on Twitter, and I want my Miitomo on whatever it is.
And if you think about it, for years, I feel like for the last decade, if not half decade, we have seen Miyamoto quotes saying, I wish we made a game that captured the kids the way text messaging does.
Yeah.
Like all they want to do is text. Like I remember seeing a quote from him recently because I was doing some research, and I almost wonder, is this that attempt? Is this that thing? Not that he's behind it, but just that or is that why they're shooting for that audience, just to get that younger market, to get them.
But they've played with it so much. Just walk around the plaza in Splatoon. It's like it's a fun environment without being able to speak to anyone. They've created something that is already that gives life and shows you the different personalities of people. It shows you creativity of people who can draw. So I feel like they've experimented with that a lot, but it's so confined. It doesn't follow you, right? Like And even in Mario Maker, like when somebody leaves a comment, like you get taken out of the experience and all that. This could be
or look at when
though.
you power up your Wii U and you see like your Mii runs out to the center, and then you see a crowd of people run after, and you see them go in different directions. And if not that
they've
you can walk around
experimented with
in
social
that
a lot
but they've
in their
experimented with
platforms,
little things like that, where you see different drawings pop up and I love Splatoon and all that. Like
Is
stuff.
that what they say?
That's not what they sound like at all. But
He has a
I'll tell you what they do sound like. They sound like it's time to go because we need to leave. That was an awful segue, but thank you for listening to Nintendo Voice Chat. We are a weekly show on IGN, but we are not the only show on IGN. In fact, Destin Laguerre is on Podcast Unlocked, and you can hear every awful segue he has made in his history on that show.
He gets
Someone
really
needs
quiet.
to make
They're
a super
so
cut
bad.
of every Destin Laguerre segue and send it to him.
Oh, that'd be great.
It's hilarious. He gets really quiet and tries to come up with a segue. You can always tell.
Yeah, he's
And
thinking
they're
about
so
the wheels are
bad. He's
turning.
like, speaking of wheels, Forza 5 just got announced. Like it's always like that.
But don't be confused. We love Destin as much as we love you. Thank you
Destin.
so much for listening to our show. You can leave us feedback by going to NVC. First of all, email us at nvc@ign.com. Make sure you send us what you think about Nintendo NX and E3. Do they take the stage or not? I'm really curious to hear some emails. We'll read them on the air next week, I promise. What else? You can also leave us a rating on the iTunes store.
Yeah.
We have a podcast section there. You can go and check that out. Sorry, my wheels are... I'm running out of gas.
Speaking of wheels.
And lastly,
podcasts.
you can find us on Twitter. You can find Brian Altano at...
Agent Bizzle.
You can find Peer Schneider at...
Peer
You
IGN.
can find myself, Jose_Otero on Twitter. Thank you so much for listening, and we will be back next week with more Nintendo Voice Chat.